In the meantime, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr Ann Enright. After 18 years in human resources, Anne completed a veterinary science degree at Murdoch University, Perth, WA, in 2008. She then went on to complete the graduate certificate in shelter medicine and a fellowship in shelter medicine. She's worked, volunteered, and visited animal refuges in Australia, the UK, Europe, and the US. She became hooked on shelter medicine whilst working at a cat shelter with an annual intake of 8,000 kittens. She co-founded a special interest group providing information sessions on disease management and behaviour for smaller rescue groups that ordinarily wouldn't have access to that information. Anne enjoys thinking outside the box, so you guys need to get together, maybe over some yoga, to find ways to improve the lives of shelter animals. Her goal is to assist other shelters, rescues and pounds to make positive changes for the animals in their care. And her motto, well, she's got two: make a difference and shape the future. So thank you very much, Anne.
So I'm just working out how to make this work.
If you want to look at, there's your slides just down there.
Oh, perfect. I was wondering whether I need my glasses or not. Hi, everybody. I'm Anne Enright, as you know, and I've been working in shelter medicine for most of my time since I've actually did my vet degree like 10 years ago. I was going to call you Joey, sorry. Jess and I were in the same class back in Murdoch, so we go back a ways. And Roz is here, Roz from Cat Haven, and that was where I had pretty much my first job, and that was where I got hooked on shelter medicine, and that was where I decided that was what I was just going to do. So, and Nell asked me to come up with something on data, and I don't know why. I thought it might be a punishment because I'm the worst with doing numbers and figures and so forth. And it was actually quite boring, I thought, until I started to crunch the numbers, and then I started to realise just what information you can find out. And then I got interested. Oh, that you've heard about, don't worry about it. Oops, press the button again. Oh, sorry, wrong way. Now, I just thought I'd maybe just talk to you a little bit, just get a few points up here, just so that we've all got it back into the front of our minds as to why we want some data. And it's what I've found out over the years is that it's a really good way to communicate between different levels of the organisation, especially when you get into larger organisations, because you've got the people on the ground doing the work and you've got the actual managerial level, and often the twain don't meet. The good ideas are happening at the coalface, and the ones at the top don't know about it. So coming up with data will support your cause, support whatever you're wanting to achieve. And also like your external communications, you have Facebook, you've got your media, you've heard Kirsten talking about it before, telling all your stories, you've got all those sorts of things. And it's data that will get you where you need to be. There's different ranges of it, and I'm sure if you looked around in the room, the different software that is being used by the different shelters, you can go to the really expensive shelter project programs, or you can just use Excel. So if you've got somebody who's really, quite clever with Excel, you can get an awful lot of information out of that at pretty much no cost. Obviously, you need to, put it in pretty much straight away and be consistent if you're going to get some valuable information, because as you all know, if you put in rubbish data into your system, you're going to get rubbish results. So the idea is to be consistent, be on it straight away. Don't rely on your memory, don't rely on thinking about things, I'll put that in later, all the rest of it, because you'll muck it up. And information is being underutilised in organisations. They collect lots of information, but they don't actually realise the value of what they're sitting on. And I've got something further up there where I can show you just how true that can be. Now, what I found to be one of the most important things was about knowing your numbers. Right? You need to know what you're dealing with so that you know where you're going wrong, what you're doing well, where you can make change. And when I was putting this together, I was thinking about how much does sorry, let me just go back a bit. Do your organisations know how much each animal costs you from when you actually hear about the situation to when the animal leaves your gate type thing? I was thinking, when I was looking at this, I was thinking of this from the council's perspective, because I was at a meeting with our local council and I was asking them, how much does it cost you for your animal control people from when that initial grudge call came in, like the neighbours ringing in, Mrs Smith's calling because the neighbour's cat's in the veggie patch digging up the tomatoes. How much does it cost for them to take the call, Go out and catch it, deal with it, however long it takes, 1 day, 2 days, 4 days, whatever it is. Do they take it back to the house? Do they take it somewhere else? How much is all of this costing the organisation? And then are they paying pound fees, which they were for us, paying pound fees? And they didn't know. The council didn't know. So we had a bit of a guess and we thought it was probably about $400 when they thought it through a little bit. So that just became the stay. It cost this organisation, this council, about $400 before the cat actually came to Cat Protection Society, which was their pound. And then I looked at it from our perspective. How much did that cat cost me, my shelter, from when it came in the door to when I actually got it rehomed? And I followed people round and I timed them, right? And I timed them sort of on an average. How long do you spend on your call? How long do you spend changing the pen and feeding the cat and cleaning the litter trays, washing the ranger's pens and crates, all those sorts of things. And what I found out that for us, it was costing roughly about the same, somewhere like $300 to $400, because we have to hold that stray cat for 8 days in Victoria. So I've got an 8-day stray hold, and then I've got all the other work that has to happen as well. So if it's costing the council about $400-ish, and it was costing me about $400-ish, I reckon we could say it was about $800-ish that this one cat was costing when it was coming in. Now, nobody knew that, and when I found that out, I thought, okay, I don't really like that. And then I have to pay for vet treatment, surgery costs if it's undesexed, needs microchipping and vaccinate on intake, you name it, the list just goes on. And it was just getting more and more expensive. So what we then did, I was wondering, why do we track? What's the importance of tracking data? Why do you need to know that? Because the council didn't seem to think that it was important. Anybody in our place didn't seem to think that it was important until I told them it was costing them $400. And so the reason I was trying to generate these thought processes at work was to work out why do you want to track your data. And it was, like the obvious one, identify your trends, your big organisational trends, what you're doing, like staring us in the face now, kitten season coming. What have we got in place for that? Have we got our foster carers in place? We've heard all about the Kitten Coalition there and their foster care program, the importance of foster carers. Have we got that up and is it ready to go at a moment's notice? Probably not. Do we need to think about some new procedures, like the definition of insanity is you keep doing the same thing every year and you don't get any difference. So why are we going to do the same thing again? I've had 12 months to sort this out, type thing, so you can come up with some initiatives, some goals. You think outside the box, you turn the situation around and you start to attack it from a different angle. There's your advertising, your finances. Are you putting your finances in the right area? Is it worth spending thousands of dollars on adoption drives and all of those sorts of things when you're not actually dealing with the problem? I'm going to have to hurry up, just got told 10 minutes. The little picture, daily operational tasks, it just helps you to focus on where you're spending your money. Benchmarking, I really like this, benchmarking with other organisations so that you know if you're doing well, you're not doing well, where you can focus your time. Grant applications. You're not going to get anything if you don't have any numbers to support what you're doing. Is Marissa here from Second Chance Second Chance Animal Rescue? The queen on writing grants. She's excellent at it, and she won't do it just by saying, I'd like some money. Donations and bequests, and also your reputation, right? You need to be able to support your reputation with your data, because otherwise you're going to get swamped with problems and all sorts of unnecessary things. Other things to track. Now, this is sort of me looking at from a shelter operations perspective. I want to know where my animals are coming from. I want to know the hotspots. I want to know where I need to put my money and where I need to go to fix things. I want to know if my programs are working. Am I getting more stray cats coming in with microchips? Am I getting more stray cats coming in that are already desexed? I want to know if that's working. Why is this not working anymore? Sorry. Other sorts of things, adoptions, transfers, return to owner, that is, the RTO's return to owner. I want to know if it's all working, and how many, is it different this year to last year? Is it making a difference to what I'm doing? Is it making a difference? I want to know what my length of stay is, because that's where my money is. If it costs you, I don't know, $20 a day to keep a cat, I want to know why they're not moving out after the 8-day stray hold or as close to it as I can get them out. Small dogs, large dogs. You know that the large dogs are going to hang around longer than the small dogs. So, you know, knowing all of this, knowing exactly how long you've got them there for, you need to be able to justify why you want to make a change. More things to track. So I was starting to get a little bit more excited about data when I was starting to think about this, because I was coming up with all sorts of interesting things that I noticed that we weren't doing very well. This is sort of more from the veterinary side of it. I wanted to know why I was having to go in there and treat animals, and if they were sick and how many were sick, where they'd come from. Was it because we had dropped our guard and that they were getting sick on site, or was it because we were transferring animals in and they were getting sick? We were getting little pockets of disease. Why were we getting all these little animals that were getting, this really horrible herpes virus, respiratory infection that was going through? Where did that come from? And we worked out that it had come from 2 properties. 10 cats had come in from 2 properties. Their back fences touched. And so we went back and sort of sorted that issue out. But if you don't know these things, you can't do anything about addressing the problem for them. I was also wanting to know how much I was spending doing surgery. Could I make some savings somewhere with my surgery costs so that I could reduce the surgery costs, so that I could make the surgeries more affordable to other organisations, or just make it more affordable for people so that more people would be getting their animals desexed. And then another little thing, and I'm not sure that I got a table in this session, the private versus shelter spays, I wanted to know what that was, and with my private surgeries, I wanted to know how many spays versus castrates I was doing. And this was a surprise to me. I just thought that I was doing about 80% probably females, and maybe the rest were castrates. When I went back and crunched the numbers, it came out, I was actually very surprised that it was sort of like 60-40. So 60% of the spays of the private surgeries that we were doing were actually spays, and that really excited me, because I then thought, I worked out how many spays that we were doing over the past couple of years for the private people. Came out to be about, let's just say 3,000. And everybody knows that it's the girls that are the problem when you're talking about getting pregnant and so forth. The boys don't have anything to do with it. So, and everybody knows that, I just worked at an average. A litter, would we agree it was about 4 kittens in a litter on average? Sort of thing, could I use that? So when I worked out that of the 3,000 surgeries that I did, and I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it was 275 spays 1 year, and then it was something like 1,000 kittens that we'd prevented. And so over a 2-year period, we'd done over 3,000 surgeries, and when you crunch the numbers, we'd prevented 6,500 kittens being born. Was when I got that number, I started to get excited about this data business. Thank you. Again, KPIs, I'm always looking around, always looking for what other people are doing for their KPIs, for their shelters, to see if it would be relevant for me. Reducing animal intake I'm always keen to know about that. And then I always review the program. So you can use your data from your shelter, and different things will be important to different shelters. Like, you've got different focuses with what you're trying to do. Now we're not moving. Oh, here we go. Did I miss a thing? Like I said, Excel, you only need Excel. I'm not very clever when it comes to these sorts of things. So I just pulled up, can you see that? Yeah. I just put together some headings of some topics that I wanted to track. And so this is what we were starting to introduce there. And then, having listened to somebody speaking this morning, I realised I've forgotten vaccination status on there. So cats coming in, are they vaccinated or not? And these are just some of the topics that are important to me. You might have some other topics on there that you want to track, depending on where you are and what you actually deal with. And this, remember, I put together when I was at Cat Protection Society, so there's not much on there about dogs. So maybe you might want to put something in there about dogs, if you have dogs coming into your place. But if you go through all of these types of things, it will give you the opportunity to work out what the length of stay is, what your euthanasia rate is, where they're coming from, and it will actually help you pull together a picture of what you've got, and then you'll be able to have a much stronger opportunity to make some changes. Now, this is a study from the shelter where I was at, the Cat Protection Society. It's a small shelter, it's about 1,500 intakes, so it's not a big thing. and we had a permit for 300 cats on site. When I started there in 2016, these were the number of cats that I had on site, like on a daily basis. Just look at the bottom line, it was just hideous. I mean, 202 cats on site every day. Intake's like 1,500, like really? Anyway, so we put in some initiatives and tried some programs, had a few pilot programs run. If you want to try something and people aren't, you're not sure that you're going to be able to sell it, well, call it a pilot, you'll be much more successful. 12 months later, I went back and we counted the numbers, and look at the difference. Same time. So imagine what that did to my figures. That's how much they were costing me that first year, or costing the shelter, nearly $500,000 to look after that many cats from January to May. So for 5 months, that was what it was costing us. And then when you compare that to the same time a year later, it was a saving of $382,000. So when I worked that out, I was getting really quite excited about data. And I went into my boss and said, "Do you know how much I've saved you?" And he goes, "Yes." And that was all he said. All right then. So data gives you the opportunity, it gives you leverage. So it gives you leverage if you want to go to the councils, if you want to go to your boss, if you want to go to your board of directors, if you want to go and try and have legislative change. You need to have data. And I was really fired by this $382,000 that I'd saved. And so then I went back into my boss and I said, "Well, we need to start a community clinic because there's a need out there. And we've got a bit of money, we've got a bit spare." So we started a clinic. And it was basic, right? It was just vaccinations and spay-neuter. That was all I was doing. And we got swamped. And we were turning people away. And he told me I couldn't turn people away. And I said to him, "I can't do 3 things at the same time." So then I was allowed to put on more vets and more nurses. So I went from 1 vet and 1 nurse a day, 2 vets, 4 nurses a day. And then we started to crunch through the numbers. Then he gave me a budget because he wanted to make sure that I knew what I was talking about. And we exceeded that, we doubled it. So he was happy about that too. And then we started to talk to councils about partnerships. And Joy was talking about that just before, about the partnerships and the value of having partnerships with councils. And Jenny, who was the ranger that Joy was talking about, is absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love her. She will get out there and do anything. And so what then happened was that they were paying us, I think it was about $170 a cat, doesn't matter what it was, and they were bringing in 1,000 cats. So there's $170,000 that the council was spending, and they didn't realise what they were spending, I don't think. And so then I went and talked to them and I said, "Well, for $140, I'll de-sex, microchip and vaccinate your cat if you privately owned cats." And then they thought that was a good idea because they were giving me 170 and then they could give me 140. They thought they were winning. And who was winning? What's the next bit? There's my table. There's my 6,000 kittens that I saved, prevented. Who was actually winning when they were doing that? They were saving $170 and they were saving their $400 when they had to go and catch the cats. I was getting $140 and I was saving $400 that it was costing me to treat those cats. So it was win-win. It was easy as. So that's just all that I wanted to show you, just the value of using your data, making sure that you've got your data in place, and then you can use that to go and really create some really amazing things. And there you go, make a difference and shape the future.